Money is way weirder than it looks. Some of it was once beer. Some of it was too heavy to carry. Some of it never existed as cash at all. One version reached 100 trillion. Another was worth 100,000 and nobody could actually spend it. Your smallest coin can cost more than itself. Torn bills can sometimes come back from the dead. The biggest tricks in money are usually hiding in plain sight. And, once you notice them, your wallet starts feeling like a history museum. By the end of this, even a boring banknote will look slightly unhinged. So let's start with the money you can't even touch. At number 10, a huge chunk of modern money is basically keystrokes wearing a serious face. In the UK, the Bank of England says banks create around 80% of money as electronic deposits. Banknotes and coins, by comparison, make up only about 3% of the money picture there. Cash feels solid, but the system mostly runs on trust, accounting, and the shared belief that those digits are real. So when your balance jumps after payday, most of that money is not paper waiting backstage. It is a record inside a banking system that everyone agrees counts as spendable value. That sounds fake until you remember you already tap screens more often than you hand over cash. Your rent, groceries, subscriptions, and midnight snack orders are usually just numbers moving between ledgers. And somehow, the next fact gets older, stranger, and a lot more crinkly than invisible money ever should. Long before Europe trusted paper promises, Song China was already turning printed slips into real spending power. Britannica says merchants used drafts and certificates first, then the government allowed printed paper money regionally. Later, that paper became nationwide legal tender, making China the first country to do it. A slip of printed paper started doing the job of heavy metal coins, which is a wild upgrade in portability. That means people were buying real goods with government-backed papers centuries before most of Europe caught up. It feels modern, but the idea is old enough to have happened under emperors, not central banks. Paper money only works if people trust the promise printed on it. So this was not just a printing trick, it was a giant trust experiment that actually worked. For something that old, paper money suddenly feels a lot less modern and a lot more legendary. Before coins filled pockets, people were often paid in things they could eat, store, or trade. The British Museum says laborers who built the pyramids of Giza got daily beer rations. Not a cute little sip either, but about 100 gallons, which is over 10 pints. For workers, that ration was calories, hydration, and compensation, all packed into the same frothy daily package. In ancient Egypt, beer was treated partly like food, partly like pay, and definitely like a necessity. So a workday could literally end with compensation sloshing in a jar. It sounds like a joke written by tired construction workers, but historians treat it as normal rationing. Money, at its core, is whatever a society accepts as valuable enough to reward labor. And that idea gets really wild when the currency is made of stone. On the island of Yap, some money was so huge that moving it was almost missing the point. These ray stones could reach enormous sizes, with some around 12 feet wide and weighing thousands of pounds. The Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland notes that ownership could change without the stone physically moving. People simply agreed that the purchasing power had passed to someone else. So the stone stayed by the road or beside a house while the owner changed. Some stones were so famous that their history helped prove their value, almost like a receipt carved into legend. That sounds suspiciously like digital banking, except the server was a village with excellent memory. The value also depended on the stone's story, including how hard it was to quarry and transport. And yes, somehow American money still found a way to get more dramatic next. The largest U.S. note ever issued for public circulation was not a $100 bill. The Federal Reserve says the champion was the $10,000 note. That is a 5-digit bill with one piece of paper doing the emotional work of a small car. Even if banks used them more than shoppers did, the idea of handing one over still feels wildly cinematic. These giant denominations were mainly used by banks, not everyday shoppers buying socks and chewing gum. Still, the fact that one existed at all makes your crumpled 20s feel hilariously underdressed. Imagine losing a wallet with a $10,000 bill inside and having to explain that calmly. The strangest part is that this still was not the largest US note ever printed, because the next bill jumped from absurd to genuinely cartoonish. Yes, the United States printed a $100,000 note, and no, you were never meant to use it. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing says it was a 1934 gold certificate. It carried Woodrow Wilson's portrait and existed only for official transactions between Federal Reserve banks. It was money designed for money itself, moving between institutions instead of pockets, wallets, or cash registers. So the biggest American bill was real, but it never circulated among the general public. It is basically the VIP lounge of money, real, powerful, and close to everyone else. Collectors cannot legally own one, which somehow makes it feel even more mythical. It is proof that money can be huge, official, and still totally absent from everyday life. It is one of those facts that makes everyday money feel tiny, ordinary, and strangely tame. Since 1969, the biggest U.S. bill in circulation has been the $100 note. That happened when the $500, $1,000, $5,000, and $10,000 notes were discontinued. The Treasury and the Federal Reserve dropped them because hardly anyone used them anymore. So the most familiar big bill won by default, not by drama. That quiet change helped turn the $100 bill into the ceiling most Americans now think of as normal. The San Francisco Fed says the $100 has been the largest denomination in circulation ever since, which means modern American money got less flashy right when electronic transfers were becoming more practical. Bigger paper stopped mattering because moving value without paper was getting easier. And the next fact is what happens when paper money gets absolutely destroyed. A burned, chewed, soaked, or buried pile of cash is not always a total loss. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing runs a mutilated currency redemption program. If enough of a note remains, or experts can determine its value, it may be redeemed. This means money can survive house fires, floods, chemical damage, and even rodent disasters. So if a family, say, floods or a wall fire eats half your savings, there is still a last hope. BEP says it receives more than 22,000 requests each year. Those claims represent an estimated value above $35 million, which is a lot of tragic laundry. Somewhere, there's a specialist whose day involves judging whether your crispy half bill still counts. And the next fact is about a coin that costs more to exist than it is worth. The penny may be the most stubbornly unprofitable celebrity in your pocket. A recent U.S. Mint estimate says producing each penny rose from 1.42 cents to 3.69 cents over the last decade. So the government can spend more than a cent to make 1 cent. It is the rare piece of money that loses a financial argument before it even leaves the factory. That is like buying a $1 coupon for nearly $4 and calling it efficiency. The weirdness gets deeper because pennies still keep showing up in jars, cars, couches, and store trays. They are tiny, familiar, and somehow more expensive than their own face value. Money is supposed to measure value cleanly, yet this coin fails its own quiz. And the last fact takes that mismatch and turns it all the way up to 100 trillion. During Zimbabwe's hyperinflation crisis, money inflated so wildly that ordinary numbers stopped looking real. The country issued a $100 trillion note, one of the largest denominations ever printed. Hyperinflation moves so fast that the printing press looks less powerful than the prices racing ahead of it. The Smithsonian describes it as one of the world's largest currency denominations. BBC coverage noted that a 100 trillion note was once enough for something as ordinary as a weekly bus ticket. That is the kind of sentence your brain rejects even while history quietly nods. When prices explode fast enough, money needs more zeros just to keep up with lunch. A banknote becomes less a store of value and more a snapshot of economic panic. And that is why money feels made up, because in one sense, it always has been. From invisible balances to beer wages, money is really a story people agree to keep believing. Change the material, the size, or the number of zeros, and the story still runs the system. So next time you hold a bill, remember you are holding trust, history, design, and a little collective theater. If one of these facts rewired your brain, There is a whole playlist waiting to do it again. Tell me which one felt most fake and send this to the friend who still thinks money is simple. Then jump into the next Zorp facts video, because the world gets even stranger from here.